This is Blasstal. I'm Lucy Dearlove.
And I'm Katie Callin. This is the third and final episode, Loaghtan.
My 7 curses on the little Loaghtan. I was twice round Brule Moor after it, but I caught her for all.
When I first came to the island back in 2000, I was totally intrigued to see this four-horned, and they said it's a lamb, it's a type of lamb. It really fascinated me. And then I tasted it. It was very unique flavour, as in a good way.
I mean, they're so iconic, so picturesque. They should be on everything. And they're ours, they're Manx, they're our sheep.
I'm a lot taller than a sheep.
Not much taller.
No, but even crawling down underneath the gorse bushes.
That's exfoliating.
I did get it everywhere.
Blasstal is a podcast series by Lecca about food and the folklore on the Isle of Man.
Blasstal is the Manx Gaelic word for tasty, the Isle of Man version of Lecca.
In collaboration with Cooidjagh, the Manx Heritage Foundation, we've been digging into 3 of the most iconic Manx foods to find out about the folk stories, songs and traditions that surround them.
This is our third and final episode, all about one of our most ancient native animals.
So I'm just going to walk this side. The boys are in here. They're all absolutely, let me see if I can find them. Oh no, I know where they are. Do you mind a little?
Yeah, of course.
I'd shut them down there to keep the boys well away from the ewes.
So I think when people think about iconic Manx animals, it's probably maybe a safe assumption to say that a lot of people's minds go to the Manx cat, which famously is tailless. We met one in the Hoptune episode. Very exciting.
That is the first thing people say to me when I say that I'm Manx. They'll say, oh, like the cats. And I'm like,
kind of?
Sure. But there is another creature that has been there for a lot longer that the island holds very close to its heart and sometimes its stomach. And even though I am a vegetarian, and this might get me exiled from the vegetarian community, I wouldn't be doing my duty as a Manx guide if I didn't introduce you to our ancient native sheep, Loaghtan.
Now, Loaghtans terrify you, lying in the grass like that. The number of times you rush up to them, I hope he's all right. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, he's
Being
fine.
dramatic.
Oh, the first time one rolled on its back. You know how white sheep, that'll often kill them.
Yes,
you have to put them back. I went rushing out, and as I got near it, just rolled back. They do it
can
for
use the
fun.
horns, can they? To just
Well,
right themselves.
they
Oh, look,
roll
they're all
for
running.
fun.
So their name, Loaghtan, it comes from the words for mouse brown or burnt brown in Manx Gaelic, and that refers to the colour of the sheep because they're not white like your classic sheep. They come in kind of different shades of this very earthy brown colour. But the thing that you notice first about Loaghtan, the thing that really sets them apart from other sheep, is on their head. Loaghtan tend to have these incredible curly horns. It is spectacular.
They are massive and kind of terrifying, slightly demonic. But down the road from my parents' house is Ballakilpheric, where they pretty much exclusively farm Loaghtan.
Oh, boys, do you want to come back in here?
They're excited. Lucy and I walked over to meet farmer Jenny Shepherd and her boys.
That is her real name.
That is her real name. Very appropriate.
They've got so much character in their faces.
They're absolutely gorgeous. I've only ever had one really aggressive ram, and the only person he'd let in with him was me. He really went for people, and he had serious horns. He was a four-horn.
Lucy, this was your first interaction with Loachtans.
Yeah.
What did you think? I've been seeing them all my life. I didn't think they were a big deal.
Yeah, this was the first time I'd seen them properly, and especially kind of as close as we were to them. We had a little fence between them, but not that much. We could really get kind of like pretty near them and have a good look. They're amazing animals. They've got these cheeky little faces. They look like they look at you and they know what's going on. They look very intelligent. Yeah, and the horns are just kind of like really majestic. It's the first thing you see about them. Just kind of like they're massive. They're not just like little kind of goat's horns, or like they're really like up and over the head. Like, yeah, they're incredible. I love them. And this farm, Ballakilpheric, has been in Jenny Shepherd's family for 60 years, and it is where she grew up.
I moved to the island when I was 7.
Right.
6,
Right.
7. It's the only home I know of.
Yeah.
I always, in England, I say I'm Manx. Over here, I wouldn't dare.
Right. Yeah.
But the Isle of Man is my home. And it's the only place in the world I see as home.
If you've heard either of our previous episodes of Blasstal, then you'll know Annie Kissack already. She is a sort of go-to person for Manx folklore and history, a teacher, a writer, poet, and former Manx bard. She's also very familiar with Loaghtan herself, having lived on a farm with them in the past.
They're not like normal sheep. You'd swear they've got a wicked look in their eyes and they're doing it deliberately, you know. They're more like mountain goats, you know.
If you've listened to the last episode of Blasstal, which was all about herring, Skedden, you'll have heard Annie read us a story from the Sophia Morrison book of Manx fairy tales all about how the herring became the king of the sea.
And when sheep crop up in Manx fairy tales and stories, another creature isn't usually far behind, the Ferrishyn. We got Sophia Morrison's book out again for this episode.
Okay, well, a Ferrishyn were Manx creatures that were living in the countryside and quite shy, well disposed generally to people in terms of being helpful. They would often go out and do work on the farm. They were very, very hairy and were not known for wearing any clothes. And sometimes the whole families of Ferrishyn there. There's even the songs about them too. Anyway, this is one of the many stories about a Ferrishyn, and this Ferrishyn lives in the west of the island in Caarjyn. The Ferrishyn was wearing no clothes, but it is said that he never felt the cold. Big Caarjyn, however, had pity on him that he had none. And one frosty winter, he went and got clothes made for him. Breeches, jacket, waistcoat and cap. Great big ones they were too. And he went and gave them to him in the barn one night. The Ferrishyn looked on them and took them up, and says he, "Coat for the back is sickness for the back. Vest for the middle is bad for the middle. Breeches for the breech is a cuss for the breech. Cap for the head is injurious for the head. If thou own big Caarjyn farm, boy, if thine this little glen east and thine this little glen west, not thine the merry glen of Rushen yet, boy." So he flung the clothes away, and he walked his ways to Glen Rushen, out to Juan Kirree's. He was working for him then, cutting the meadow hay for him, cutting turf for him, and seeing after the sheep. And it happened one winter's night that there was a great snowstorm. Juan Moore got up to see after the sheep, but the Ferrishyn came to the window. "Lie, lie, and take a sleep, Juan," says he. "I got all the sheep in the fold, but there was one Loaghtan healing that give me more trouble till all the rest. My 7 curses on the little Loaghtan. I was twice round Berree Moor after her, but I caught her for all." When Juan went out in the morning, all the sheep were safe in the Cooidjagh house, and a big hare was in with them, with 2 lankets on him. That was the brown yearling. So there you are, not the brightest of the bright.
So basically,
He's mistaken the hare. Yes. No, they weren't known for their intelligence.
So although the takeaway lesson from that story seems to be that the Ferrishyn are simple folk with poor observational skills, Speaking to Jenny about how Loaghtans behave makes me feel that maybe the Fathaby wasn't that silly for confusing a Loaghtan with a hare.
They are cheeky, they are intelligent, they're wonderful, wonderful characters. As you get to know them, they're completely different.
Because you obviously fell for them, like quite, you know, you had your 6, was it 6 sheep?
6, yes.
And that was it.
For all the reasons I've said, you know, just how they behave as a family group. And they are wonderful sheep. But there are 2 weathers in there who, I don't know what we do with them. We cannot catch them because they can jump anything.
Oh, really?
They haven't been sheared. We gathered them in and they just leapt straight out. They can jump the gate with ease.
Oh my word.
And their very strong flock instinct means they'll always jump back later and rejoin their mates.
Yeah.
It's just when you try and pen them, they can jump all of this with ease.
My word.
But fortunately, not all of them have that.
That's the jumping gene.
The jumping gene, yeah. They are just menaces.
The native Loaghtans have grazed the hills of the island for over 1,000 years. But the introduction of other breeds from across the sea meant that by the 1950s, numbers had declined to a handful, a familiar story that you hear a lot when it comes to heritage breeds in different places. This was partly due to the demand for white fleece sheep during the Industrial Revolution. And Manx Loaghtans could have become extinct, but thankfully, because of people like Jenny, who have a real passion for the breed, they're actually making a comeback.
In the sort of late 1800s, when they were going rare, there were quite a few farmers who went over to the white sheep but kept 1 or 2 Manx Loaghtans out of tradition.
And was that a sort of superstitious thing? You had to have 1 Loaghtan or 2 to keep the farm?
Yes.
Manannans?
Yeah, there were that sort of, but I haven't got any concrete of exactly what they...
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because everything was such an oral tradition, especially with farming and superstition.
And as I say, people never appreciated the value of stock books and things like this or any records. So they all got chucked out.
Yeah.
Because there must have been a time when people were just talking about sheep in general, that they just meant Loaghtan, because that was the primary...
The Isle of Man in the Middle Ages, 1700s, early 1700s, was just Loaghtans everywhere. But their wool was valued and their meat.
I guess I can't put it off any longer. Lucy, it is time to get to the meat of the matter and let you actually eat some Loaghtan.
I feel bad for putting you through this.
I'm very sad. R.I.P.
Kumar Menon is the owner of Leela's Kitchen.
The difference in appearance, when I first came to the island back in 2000, I was totally intrigued to see this 4-horned, and they said it's a lamb, it's a type of lamb. And as a student and totally new to the island, it really fascinated me. And then I tasted it. It was now I could see the massive difference. In back in India we have goat, and over here I tried the lamb, and then the Loaghtan. They all 3 different flavors altogether. And I'm absolutely something I cook with in my home is Loaghtan meat when I can get hold of.
Leela's Kitchen makes spice mixes, sauces, coffee, chocolate, and loads more. And Kumar also runs cooking classes on the Isle of Man too.
I came to the island in April 2003. Came as a student. I was a catering student. And the reason behind Leela's Kitchen, it was just as a hobby. I started off, and I named it after my late Nana. Thought I'll do something in her memory. She had a massive influence in my life, along with my mum and my aunt. We are a large family back in south of India. 18 of us in a house, so you can imagine. So there's something always cooking. I am the third generation of spice dealers. My granddad started the pepper exchange back in the 1940s. And pepper, as you know, is called the black gold. So my dad took on the business and he introduced cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, along with peppercorns. And so thanks to that, I've got access to very high quality products. And that obviously reflects in all my products. We've won several great taste awards. And I've also had a few collaborations on the island. It's nice to have the fantastic local producers and collaborating with them.
Jenny's farm Ballakilpheric also sells all kinds of Loaghtan products. I picked up some of the sausages while we were interviewing her so I could have a taste.
Their meat is fabulous. It's slow maturing, so in texture and a bit taste, it's more like venison than conventional lamb.
It's very
dark.
dark. Yeah.
It's low in cholesterol, low in fat. The fat on Loaghtans tends to be on the outside or around their vital organs. You don't get the fat marbling through the meat in the same way.
Oh wow, that's a strong smell,
Isn't it?
crikey.
Especially for the non-meat eaters.
Especially for vegetarian. What's
A break.
Wow.
This is the price you pay for
It's my fault.
doing a food podcast.
brought it on myself.
We volunteered.
I know I asked for this.
It has got a stronger, gamier taste. Most people love it. A few don't like the gaminess, but it's the composition of the fat's completely different to conventional. It is low in cholesterol.
Oh, it smells very lamby now. Like, it didn't smell so strong before, but now.
Because it's slow maturing, you need to slow cook it too.
That's
But
a good tip.
That is a good
yeah, cooked properly, it's divine. You can't cook it in the same way as a 4-month-old lamb. That
Right.
they are tasty.
I think it's cooked. Exciting times. Okay, so
Moment of silence.
I'm gonna
Magnus, or whoever it was.
try some Magnus. It's like the texture's kind of different to what I was expecting. It's a bit like softer.
Oh.
I'm not going to describe the meat to you like in great detail.
That's okay.
I'm a fan.
You into that?
Luckily for me, there is another important product that the Loaghtans are farmed for, and that is their wool.
I'm acutely aware that having the second largest flock, 900 odd sheep, that I really must preserve all the traits of Loaghtans, not just the ones that you see in show sheep. Mm-hmm. I've got some beautiful show Loaghtans, but I also keep the ones with no horns, polled horn, 2 horn, 4 horn. We even have a 6 horn, which is incredibly rare. We also keep a range of fleece types. Not one fleece is right or wrong, in that some of them are looser, some are much more tightly curled. I do make sure that I keep the range of them. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their personal preferences.
Right, what are we trying to do then?
Oh yeah, thank you.
What are we trying to do?
Yeah.
Make a cross curl. I'm going to put this microphone on first, though. Someone who knows all about personal preferences for wool is Manx artist Rosie Wood. If you've listened to any of our other Isle of Man episodes, you might have heard my mum talking about bonnig or my auntie Nikki talking about herring. To complete the set, we went to visit the third sister, my auntie Rosie.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Auntie Rosie's house isn't far from Jenny's farm, so we headed on over for a bit of a folky craft session with some wool that she'd collected.
I've got a big pile of wool.
Where did the wool come from?
The wool I got this morning on my walk up into the hill from here, up towards the mines. It's great when you go over the cattle grid because you know there's the sheep are up there. And scratching around a bit for it, but usually on the gorse bushes, because sheep, when the weather's bad, will quite often, or frequently, probably every night, go in underneath the gorse bushes for shelter. Hence, even when I got home and I was rinsing a lot of the gorse out of the prickles out of that, I then got in the shower. It was like, ooh, washing my hair with gorse prickles in my hair. Because I literally, I'm a lot taller than a sheep. Crawling.
Not much taller.
No, but even crawling down underneath the gorse bushes.
That's exfoliating.
I did get it everywhere.
Well, thank you for your dedication.
I mean, it would have been Loaghtan wool over here originally because that was the only sheep, I understand, the only breed of sheep for a long time. Because now a lot of the Loaghtan that are bred, they're bred on farms, but the Loaghtans I remember when I was a child that were still up in the hills and things, if you see them sort of spring, late summer, they look terrible because they'd be there and they'd be dragging, bits of look like their skin was falling off. Yeah, because they were just left on the hillsides and looked after themselves, and that's the natural way if you think about it. Sheep were probably around before humans, and therefore they had to naturally shed their fleece.
In winter they get a very coarse ruff and this wonderful dark line down the back. Now that dark line is seen in lots of ancient creatures. You'll see it in Icelandic horses. Lots of these animals that go back to Viking times, a lot of them have this dark line. Don't ask me how, why.
Auntie Rosie's own art takes a lot of inspiration from the natural world and the Manx landscape, through drawing, printmaking, photography, but also weaving, felting and working with wool. And in her workshop we came across something that could have been from the stories that Annie told us. Oh, look at this.
So this was a challenge. A friend, when we were in lockdown, she sent us all a spoon, and mine just has to have a little heart on it, and I thought we had to make something with it. So
He's
I
lovely.
made it so that's his nose. So
That's brilliant.
I've not got him stuffed at the moment, but that's...
So that's a hair made out of Loaghtan.
Yeah, the base is Loaghtan fabric to make the thing, and then I've obviously needle felted different colours into him as well, and made him little eyes.
His eyes
Well, they are sort of really on the, they really are on the side. Well, they are almost on the side of their heads because they don't see you coming if you're coming from behind them because their eyes sort of are so far out. But yes,
I love that.
That's my little.
Right, let me get out
Locks and hair.
My little yes, my hair made from Loaghtan.
This is Loaghtan.
That's Loaghtan.
And is this Loaghtan here?
I'm fairly sure that has some Loaghtan in.
It looks
Obviously,
nice.
the Loaghtan is usually quite brown, and you can't dye it except in other darker colours because you wouldn't necessarily bleach it.
Right. Okay.
So there's you can get different colour Loaghtan.
Got a crush cairn up there, and it's fairly easy to do, and people often can make one quite easily enough, and there's no harm done in that way. Mind you, finding ash is a magic wood apparently, more than others.
One crafty, folky tradition involving sheep's wool is the crush cairn. Lucy and I had spent the morning scouring the woods near my house for a bit of mountain ash, and as you heard, Auntie Rosie had very generously dedicated herself to scrambling about for some wool. And those are the two ingredients. Let the crush cairns begin. So we've got all the bits and bobs here. We brought this.
So we're making 3, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
we'll make 1
3.
each. So how?
So, yes, the Caarjyn
Caarjyn.
just means cross made from a rowan.
Cross made from a...
Oh, so Caarjyn is Rowan.
Rowan, it's the Manx name for rowan.
yeah, or mountain ash.
Or mountain ash. Mountain ash.
God, it smells like almonds.
Oh. The rowan is the Celtic, it's the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was meant to be what they reckoned that the first woman was formed from.
The first woman was made from a tree.
Yeah,
This tree.
from a rowan, yeah.
How
mountain
did she do that then?
Well, I don't know. The rowan or mountain ash has been quite renowned in a lot of different cultures as quite a significant, magical, powerful tree. So if we get our 2 sticks.
Okay, doesn't matter what
2
length
sticks.
they are.
No,
Okay.
doesn't matter at all. Depends where you want to put it when you hang it up.
You take these 2 and I'll just take the berries off this one. And
Well, we could probably half one of these to make 2.
That's a long one, I reckon.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen them made quite square.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, you can basically that's.
Teeny tiny.
You can make
a
teeny
little
tiny
Maybe
one.
I'll just snap this and make.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. We're just gonna want to break it to smell the almonds on it all the time now.
Smell good.
Now I've made a mess. That's it. Oh,
Right.
right. So all we're going to do then, you're just going to go round,
So we've put our little twigs in a.
put twigs in a cross, and then use your length of wool just to wrap round. Wrap it round.
That's quite good actually. It's quite
Yeah.
sturdy with the wool.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's all you need to do then is just sort of, you see, I was going to say you could needle felt it in, but it's not supposed to touch wool, is it?
Yeah.
It's touch metal.
Use a bit of a pointy bit of stick.
Yeah, just to
dab it in.
tuck that last bit in.
If you get some ASMR.
Okay. That's probably enough, okay? Unless we should have put some newspaper on before we started.
Yeah, avoiding metal. There's lots of auspicious times as well for not using metal for various reasons. So these things often crop up together and cross-fertilise each other's ideas, I think.
I don't know which way up mine looks better. There you go.
There we go. Mine's a bit wonky, but
Oh, I don't use a say it, you know, they don't have to be perfect. And there we go. As simple as that. It was much harder collecting wool. finding the rowan sticks.
finding the bits is more difficult than putting it together.
And then what you do is you just put that at the entrance to the house, on the front door and the back door. And a lot of people used to put them on the outside, but I think they put them on the inside traditionally. And it's just supposed to help keep the look on the inside for the year.
So it's not about keeping something out, it's about keeping something in.
It's keeping the look in, or, you know, I've heard it say that it keeps the Munjavega out, you know, the little people who can cause trouble. Yeah.
Well, it's a ward off bad influences, to put it basically, to protect your house. And obviously the cross shape is a good thing there, but needs to be placed high up over a door. And you need to do it on May Eve, the night before May Day. There are lots of traditions to do with May Eve and May Day, but that's one of the main sort of symbols of it.
You refresh them then for that following year. So, of course, obviously the spring festival is a big Celtic festival.
Evolden. That's like one of the nights where the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest, isn't it?
It is.
That and Hot June,
yes,
two of the main ones.
So there you have it, Caarjyn, easy peasy. Find yourself some mountain ash and some sheep's wool that hasn't touched any metal next May Eve, and try making one for yourself.
Superstitions and bad luck are at the heart of a lot of Manx folklore and traditions. The Isle of Man hasn't always been the most lucky place, particularly for those who farm.
Do you know that old Manx song, Na Kirree for Nectar? the sheep under the snow one?
I've heard of it, but I don't.
Please, Sarah,
You
no.
don't give a farmer an iPhone.
Kirree fo Niaghtey. It's disputed the history of it, as it always is, but it certainly made a mark on Manx folk song in terms of the number of versions of this that is going around. If you were going to say, what did most people traditionally call a Manx folk? What would they have thought was a Manx song in the 19th century? Virtually everybody would have said Kirree fo Niaghtey. That was like, they sort of identified with it. So it must have been a huge event that people all over the island were still recalling this, even into this, the last century, and this. So it was like one of the two big songs that people remembered and seen as sort of being Manx, really. They certainly think it's amongst the oldest of the Manx songs, word-wise and tune-wise. It appears to have been centred on an actual event in the uplands of Loaghtan, up by towards where Laxey Wheel and everywhere is there, and commemorating a huge storm there. But I believe big weather events that affected everywhere on the island, and the sort of loss of the livelihood and the sheep. And there are records of families with names which are mentioned in this song. The story, as it is in the song, is really saying after a winter of snow and a spring of frost, the old sheep were getting on, but the young sheep had been born, and then this terrible snow came down, and it seemed to trap this particular flock that's mentioned. The number of sheep in the flock has been, I've heard people discuss this, may have been exaggerated because the number of people who were on the island keeping sheep at the time would probably not have justified the sorts of things that were mentioned. But there is Nicholas, a farmer, Nicholas Raby farm, and news came to him, this is in the song, that his sheep were lost in the snow. Kirree fo Niaghtey. They were down, they were deep down in this glen in the narrow Caarjyn in the gorgy bit. The chorus which is, oh, Irree, Shiu, my Loaghtan, get up, my boys, my fellas, go out and we'll go and find the sheep that are in the snow. So at the end of every verse, he's imploring them all to get up and get out, and to go and find them. So they do. Like all these folk songs, really, especially Manx ones, they don't always follow in a sort of straight line narrative. But at some point, they do indeed find a sheep, and a lot of them are dead, which could be devastating. But they find the young sheep, the lambs, are still kept within the sort of body of the animals in the middle, so they're still alive. So Nicholas Raby can survive another few years he doesn't lose the whole flock. So, yeah. Yeah, I suppose the importance of touching upon the vulnerability of people who were living on the land there, and the potential of losing everything. And it's fairly unusual on the Isle of Man that you get terrible snow like that, but we had it in 2013, and here where we're living at the moment, down the long lane, and we're not that high up, we're about 400 feet maybe. Certainly this part of the island, the south and the west, we were absolutely covered in snow, and we couldn't get up this lane at all for several days. The snow was higher than me, but my husband went out round really to see what was happening, just walking over the tops of hedges because you couldn't go down. And there were sheep, and there were unfortunately, certainly even round here, sheep who died as a result of the snow, and certainly in other parts of the island it was very, very much worse. They're higher up. So, these, what was then rare events, and I hope they stay rare, but and they were catastrophic, in 2013. But I suppose way back in the late 1700s, when I think was the sort of time referred to in the Sheep Under the Snow, Kirree fo Niaghtey song, there wouldn't be a lot else you were depending on. So, yes.
But what's the likelihood that any of those sheep under the snow would have been Loaghtan.
I would imagine, but I have no grounds to say definitely one way or the other. I would imagine so. The native sheep.
It matters to me that we preserve this breed, and we've got to get some younger people interested in it. So I'm really hoping if the tourist side takes over, that people can see, yes, it's profitable.
Yeah.
The Isle of Man won't have these sheep soon unless somebody preserves them. I'm doing it at the moment, and a few others are, but when we die out, you know, what next? I mean, they're so iconic, so picturesque. They should be on everything.
Yeah,
and they're ours, they're Manx. They're our sheep.
Yeah, I find it really moving to hear Jenny talking about the kind of preservation of Loaghtan as a breed. And it just really feels like another reminder that I think we've had several throughout this series, that you can't take things for granted and you've really got to work to keep traditions alive. And it's really important to kind of talk about them and not ignore the issue. So I was really grateful to Jenny for kind of sharing her experiences on that and talking about their sheep so beautifully. They are amazing.
It's been really special to explore the sort of things that I guess people don't think about when it comes to food often. Sort of you just don't even think about where these things come from and how embedded a lot of food is at the heart of a lot of fairy tales and folk tales and traditions, because, you know, life does sort of revolve around food. Everyone needs to eat. And they always have needed to eat. And so it just it's a nice way of connecting with the past because it's always been there. But as Jenny said, it might not be at some point.
And so we come to the end of our Blasstal journey. We sadly had to say our goodbyes to the island and to Katie's family, who very kindly hosted us for the time we were there recording. Couldn't have done without your hospitality, David and Vanessa, so thank you very much. And then we headed back to London, but we thought to kind of mark the occasion and coming to the end of the series, we thought it would be fitting to try out one of Cumar Menon's favourite recipes for Loaghtan.
One of my mum's collection, we are going to use Loaghtan on the bone, if possible, for this recipe, diced up. And we need a pressure cooker. You know, using a pressure cooker will reduce the time and save energy. And we need at this day and age.
Okay, so I'm going to put the lamb in the pressure cooker. I've got a kilo of Loaghtan with half a tablespoon of ground pepper, tablespoon of coriander powder, teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of turmeric, 1 teaspoon of garam masala, half a tablespoon of lime juice. Oh, I haven't put the salt in. Half a tea. I'm just going to use my hands. Some salt. And also in here. And then we're going to add some water when we put it in the pressure cooker. And we have also got the vegetarian version, which is exactly the same marinade, but on carp aubergine. And I'm just going to roast that.
Cover and cook in the pressure cooker for 20 minutes. And in this 20 minutes, cook on high flame or high heat for 15 minutes. And then lower the heat for 5 minutes. So while the lamb is getting cooked in the pressure cooker, we can make the gravy sauce. So for that, in a large saucepan or large pot, add 4 tablespoons of coconut oil, 200 grams of shallots. Now these are Indian shallots. 200 grams will be about 30 of them. They're really small, tiny shallots. sliced.
That's so many shallots.
So many.
I love that.
1 large onion sliced. 1.5 inch of ginger finely chopped. 8 cloves of garlic finely chopped. 2 green chilies chopped, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Add this all into the saucepan. Cook them. Fry for about 15 minutes till the shallots and the onion turn golden brown.
Oh yeah, hear that sizzle.
Now you reduce the heat at this point and add 2 tablespoons of coriander powder, 1 teaspoon of chili powder,
Ow.
and add 1 teaspoon of garam masala. Cook for about a minute. Now stir. While you're stirring it, you can see the fresh aromas of the spices coming through. It's beautiful at this stage. And all the garam masala and the chili and the coriander brings a beautiful aroma at this stage.
Yum. Oh, it smells good.
Yeah, it's smelling good already.
And make sure it's cooked on a low heat, because otherwise you'll burn the spices. Now add 1 tomato, which is finely chopped, and 3 sprigs of curry leaves. Try and get fresh curry leaves. 1/4 cup of coriander leaves. Now these are optional. Now, some people like coriander leaves, some people don't. So this is totally optional. You don't have to add coriander leaves if you don't want to. Now mix everything on a low flame and add 1 cup of hot water. Now, hot water is very important, because if you add cold water, it could kill the warm spices. So always warm water when you add water to a dish. And cover and heat, cook in a high heat. And once it's boiled, add the lamb, the Loaghtan lamb. Mix everything. Cover and cook for further 10 to 15 minutes over a medium heat. And towards the end, add 1/2 a tablespoon of black pepper. Now this again depends on how hot and spicy you would like your dish to be. Mix everything, rest it for 15 minutes, so all the flavor from the spices will be absorbed by the lamb, Loaghtan lamb, and serve with basmati rice or naan bread or chapatis. And 1 kilo of Loaghtan lamb will easily serve about 6 people. Thank you.
How is that Loaghtan?
It's actually delicious. So thanks to Kumar for such a good recipe. I'm definitely going to be making that again. Could make it with anything. We've done it with aubergine. You could do it with turnip.
You could do it with turnip.
I think you could do it with turnip. I think herring would be worse. And we can do a toast. We can do a Manx toast.
Okay. I mean, usually I just say slant by.
Slant by?
Slant by. But we could also say slant a she as Eishtave as manris son de Berree.
Cheers.
Yeah. In the sack.
So there are my beautiful boys. They've checked you out, they've got bored, and they're now wandering back.
Fair enough.
Oh, they are just so beautiful.
They are fabulous characters.
You still hear of things from time to time, and you can think that's very hard to explain, or yes, I'm sure there'll always be tales as long as there's people and strange things going about.
Blasstal is hosted and produced by Lucy Dearlove and Katie Callin. This series was supported by Cooidjagh, the Manx Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much to Cooidjagh. They've been so supportive, not only with the grant that they gave us for this series, but just kind of generally with the support online for the episodes that they've given us, and just being generally really enthusiastic about what we've been doing. So we're really grateful to have this opportunity to explore Manx food and folklore in this way. Thank you, Cooidjagh. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you also to Jenny Shepherd, the best named sheep farmer ever at Ballakilpheric, Annie Kissack, Kumar Menon and Rosie Wood, as well as, I guess now this is the end of the series, as well as everyone else that's been a part of it. You've all been amazing. Annie Kissack's new book of poetry, Mona Sings, is out now, so if you've enjoyed hearing from her in this series, definitely try and get hold of a copy of that. Our theme music was composed specially for this series by Mira Royal. Additional music is courtesy of Manx Folk Dance Society and Caarjyn Cooidjagh. Vicky Webb, aka Crumpets and Crabsticks, did our series artwork and bespoke illustration for each episode. You can find those on the Lecker Twitter and Instagram at Lecker Podcast.
I really wanted to finish the series with a poem by Annie Kissack. As we've said throughout, she is a poet and former Manx bard, and this is a really beautiful poem of hers called Irree, which means on the boat. It's in Gaelic, it's in Manx Gaelic, and she repeats as mish gol tai throughout the poem, which means and I go home, which feels appropriate. So this is Irree by Annie Kissack.
Him Shiu.
Him Shiu.
Varanus nôl, taid y teimach, tam I chaw mwy y ler. Ta cwrn mar y giri cwlem, sor yn selge bioch yn bioch y mychri. As mishgol tai, as mishgol tai. Tan gia clabanach rep yn y bodlan, tan mac bain yn trom san sport, as my hwlan heen len jay jeerden, hanodem fagen veg na lot, hanodem lot as mishgol tai, as mishgol tai. Ta seiged san ustja, as strelin yn ben a gaia ter yn feather tar a cheech yn day. Ta dúlish ra agan, by len ellen, as lasen en verlezig a kirch na he, as mish chittai, as mish chittai.